Sometimes the moment everything finally feels right is the exact moment he starts pulling away, not suddenly, not dramatically, just in small, confusing ways, a little less communication, a little more distance, a little more silence where warmth used to be. And if you've ever experienced this, the question usually arrives quickly. What changed? Because just days before, everything felt different, the connection felt natural, the conversations flowed easily, he seemed present, interested, even emotionally open in ways he hadn't been before. There might have been a moment where something shifted between you, a conversation that went deeper than usual, a quiet moment where both of you seemed more honest than before. Maybe he told you something personal. Maybe he admitted a fear. Maybe he looked at you in a way that made you feel like the connection had crossed an invisible line. The kind of line where things stop being casual and start becoming meaningful. Those moments can feel powerful because emotional closeness creates a sense of safety. It makes people feel seen, understood, accepted, and for a brief moment, it can feel like something real is beginning. But sometimes that exact moment, the moment where closeness becomes real, is the moment when someone begins to step back. Not because the connection was fake, but because it suddenly became important. And importance can create pressure, especially for someone who isn't used to emotional closeness. From the outside, it can feel confusing, because the same person who begins to pull away is often the one who created the closeness in the first place. The one who started the deeper conversations, the one who shared personal stories, the one who made the connection feel genuine, which makes the shift feel almost contradictory. But internally, it doesn't always feel that way. Internally, it can feel like something unexpected just happened, because emotional closeness doesn't affect everyone the same way. Some people experience closeness as comfort, others experience it as vulnerability. And vulnerability can feel risky, not because the other person is dangerous, but because emotional attachment creates the possibility of loss. When someone begins to care deeply about another person, a new kind of awareness appears. The awareness that this connection now matters. And when something matters, it suddenly has the power to hurt. For people who have been disappointed before, that realization can activate old protective instincts. Instincts that quietly say, slow down, create space, don't go too deep. Not because they want to hurt anyone, but because their mind is trying to protect them from future pain. Sometimes this protection happens so automatically that the person doesn't even fully understand what they're doing. They just feel a sudden need for distance, more time alone, more emotional space, more breathing room between interactions. From the outside, that distance can look like disinterest. But internally, it can simply be someone trying to manage feelings that suddenly became stronger than expected. Because when closeness grows quickly, emotions can grow quickly too. And emotions that grow faster than someone feels ready for can create a sense of losing control, which is uncomfortable for many people, especially those who have learned to stay emotionally self-sufficient. So when a relationship begins to feel deeper than expected, the instinct may not always be to move closer. Sometimes the instinct is to step back, just enough to regain balance, just enough to feel safe again. But from the other side, that step back can feel confusing, because the warmth that existed before didn't disappear completely. It just became quieter, less expressive, less consistent. And when warmth turns into uncertainty, the mind begins searching for explanations. Did I do something wrong? Did I say something that pushed him away? Did I misunderstand what the connection meant? These questions can become loud when someone pulls away after getting close, but sometimes the truth isn't about something that went wrong. Sometimes the truth is simply that the connection became real enough to scare someone who wasn't prepared for it. For many people, emotional closeness feels natural. It feels comforting. It feels like something to move toward. But for others, closeness can activate a very different response. Because when intimacy begins to grow, something deeper becomes visible. The possibility of dependence, the possibility of loss, the possibility of emotional vulnerability. And for someone who has spent years protecting themselves from those experiences, that moment can feel overwhelming, not dramatic, not chaotic, just uncomfortable enough to create distance. Distance can feel like control over emotions that suddenly feel unpredictable, control over a situation that might otherwise move faster than expected. So instead of moving closer, they pause, they slow things down, they become quieter, more reserved. Sometimes they even convince themselves that the connection isn't as important as it felt, Not because that's actually true, but because minimizing feelings can make them easier to manage. From the outside, this behavior often looks like someone losing interest, but internally, it can feel very different. It can feel like someone trying to protect themselves from feelings they don't fully understand yet. And that's why the change can feel so confusing, because the person pulling away may still feel the connection, they may still think about the moments you shared, they may still remember how calm or comfortable they felt around you, but instead of leaning into those feelings, they lean slightly away from them, creating space, creating time, creating emotional distance that allows them to regain control. For the person on the other side, though, that space can feel like disappearance. Because you experienced the closeness, you saw the openness, you felt the moment where the connection deepened, and then you watched something change afterward, which leaves a quiet question that many people in this situation eventually ask themselves. If the connection felt real, why did he pull away? Sometimes the answer isn't that the connection was weak. Sometimes the answer is that the connection became stronger than expected. Strong enough to challenge someone's comfort with intimacy. Strong enough to make emotional walls feel less secure. And when those walls start to feel unstable, the instinct is often to rebuild them, even if that means creating distance from someone who felt important. So, the pulling away isn't always about rejection. Sometimes it's about protection. Protection from emotions that suddenly feel unfamiliar. Protection from vulnerability that feels too intense too quickly. Protection from the possibility of caring more deeply than someone is ready for. And that's the paradox many people experience in relationships. The closer two people begin to feel, the more exposed someone can suddenly feel. And for those who aren't used to that exposure, distance can seem like the safest response. Not because the connection meant nothing, but because it meant enough to feel risky, enough to trigger old defenses, enough to make someone step back and ask themselves if they're ready for something real. Which is why pulling away after getting close doesn't always mean the connection was an illusion. Sometimes it means the connection was real enough to change something inside them, and that kind of change can feel frightening when someone isn't used to letting people all the way in.